Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here and welcome back to Simple Serger Technique series. And in this episode we are going to explore how you can make a blind hem by using your serger. Now before we get started with the technique itself, we will need to find a blind hem foot that is going to look like this. Now some sergers come with it together at the time of the purchase, and I must say that my serger is definitely on a cheaper side, and it already came with this foot. So definitely take a look through the accessories that came together with your serger. Once you have it, let's go ahead and switch it out. It is super easy. Right here in the back of your presser foot, there's going to be a little lever. So go ahead and press it. This will drop the current presser foot. Now take your blind hem foot, place it underneath, and snap it in place. Now you could actually do a blind hem on your serger by using your regular presser foot. It is a little bit more challenging, but we are going to take a quick look at it a little bit later in the video. Now let's talk about the settings. This is a 3-thread technique, so we're going to start by removing the right needle. Now the stitch finger and the knife are going to stay as they are. The stitch width, stitch length, and differential feed are going to be set all for regular standard serging. So for me, stitch width is set at 5, stitch length is set at 3, and differential feed is at 1. Next, we're going to thread it. Left needle, upper looper, and lower looper. And I am using different color thread so that way we can see the process a little bit better. The tension settings here are going to be somewhat similar to a flat lock seam, and we're going to start with our left needle. Here we need to loosen up the tension, so we're going to bring it down. Let's go all the way to number 2. Moving on to the right needle, here we don't need to adjust anything because that's the needle that we removed. And then let's move on to the upper looper, and we're going to tighten it up just by a little bit. Let's set it up to number 5. And then the lower looper, which we're going to loosen up as well. So let's bring it down to number 3. Now, although this technique is very simple, it does require a good amount of practice. So I like to use my fabric scraps for that. And remember that you can use both your knits and your wovens. I have plenty of quilting cotton scraps, so that's what I'll be using for tests. Now first, place your fabric wrong side up and then press the hem depending on how deep you want it. Next, we're going to fold it down to create a little lip that stands out. These are exactly the same steps for a blind hem as you would do them for a sewing machine technique. Please note that currently the distance between the metal part of the foot and the plastic guide is about 1/16 of an inch. Now you can always adjust it and make it smaller or make it bigger. I find that this width really determines how visible are going to be the stitches on the blind hem that you're going to make. To start working on your hem, we're going to place it underneath our presser foot so that the plastic edge, the little guide, aligns with the folded edge of our hem. As we work through it, you will see a couple of things. First, the majority of the stitches are going to be formed on this little lip that is sticking out. Then the knife is going to cut off any excess that we don't need. Now, the only place where the stitches are going to be formed on this part is the distance between this metal piece and the plastic piece, right over here. I find that there are 2 ways how you control how the stitches are formed. Number 1, you can look right over here and make sure that this folded edge is always butted against this plastic piece. Or number 2, you can look through this little window right over here and make sure that the left needle thread only ever so slightly catches the folded edge. This is what you're going to have on the wrong side once you're done. To completely form your blind hem, you're going to open this up and straighten it out. This is obviously way too visible for a blind hem, but for demonstration purposes, this actually works out. And as you can see, the red thread, the one that's in the left needle, is the one that you will be able to see. So that is the one that you will need to match to the overall color of your fabric. On the wrong side, we can see a stitch that is a little bit too loose. So here I see the red thread poking through and forming a loop. So I think I will actually need to tighten up the left needle, and perhaps I will also need to tighten up the upper looper. So let's do one adjustment at a time, starting with the left needle, and do another test run. So I'm bringing up the tension of the left needle up to 3. The sample is done, so let's take a look. Let's pop it open. Oh, and you can definitely see that the red thread isn't looping up anymore. Let me bring the other sample so that way you can see them side by side. There is one thing that I noticed about this new sample, and if we look a little closer, we can see that it doesn't sit quite flat. So it sort of dips a little bit right where the stitches are being formed, even after pressing it. Now, if we take a look on the back, we can see that the lower looper is a little too loose. So initially, I thought that I would need to adjust the upper looper, but the lower looper is actually the one that pulls on the needle thread, and I think it's a little too loose, so I will go ahead and tighten up the tension. So I'm going to bring the lower looper from 3 to 4, and I think we have a winner. On the top, you can see the first sample where we adjusted only the left needle's tension, and on the bottom you can see the sample that I just did where we adjusted both the left needle's tension and the lower looper, and you can definitely tell that it's much flatter. The last adjustment is to decrease the distance between the metal part and the plastic part, so that way our blind hem stitches can be as small as possible. Now this is a sample with the original width, and these are samples with decreased width, and as you can see there, the stitches are still visible, but it's probably the smallest that I can get it to be. To do this without a blind hem foot, you're going to follow all of the same steps, but you will need to manually see that the left needle only catches the very edge of this fold. There is a little window right over here where you can see how those stitches are formed and where they fall. Now let's say you're working on hemming a pant leg or a sleeve, then a lot of the sergers have a removable piece over here, so that way you can place your project over it and hem in the round. And although I really love using my serger for a lot of different techniques, as you have seen from this video, from all of the previous garments, I love playing around with it. This particular technique is definitely not my favorite. I personally barely ever, if at all, use it. And I think it has to do with a couple of things, and one of them is that I find it really difficult to look through that little window of the blind hem foot on a serger to make sure that the stitches are all nice and even and that the blind hem is truly going to be blind hem. And I think that doing a blind hem on a sewing machine or by hand gives a much better result. But remember, that's just my personal opinion, so definitely give this technique a try. Perhaps you're going to love it and find it really useful. Now instead of a blind hem, I actually much rather do a flat lock seam, also done on the serger. So if you want to know how to do that, click on a video right over here. And I thank you so much for watching. I truly hope that you got to know your serger a little bit better. And until next time, happy, thoughtful serging. I'll see you soon. Bye!